I'm really happy to be here with you all for the first class of Uncaged, which is devoted to developing flexibility and freedom in your rib cage. The class series with David Zemach-Bersin. And this is our first class. I'm so excited. We are joined today by Roz Ori, a Feldenkrais trainer in Tel Aviv, and Maggie Burrows, who is an experienced practitioner joining us from London. The two of them are here to help if you encounter any confusion or difficulty in the course of the lesson. If you're joining us from Zoom, you can type into the chat and they'll help you with any issues that come up for you. You can direct your question to one of them individually or just write to everyone. And they very much want to help. We all do. So please don't hesitate to ask if you encounter any confusion. And if you're joining us on Facebook or YouTube, you can type into the comments field there and someone will assist you as soon as possible. We are also joined today by Nadia Genois, who is a Feldenkrais practitioner in Montreal, and Nadia will be doing the lesson in sitting. If you need to translate the instructions that David gives over the course of the lesson into a sitting position, you can see how Nadia is engaging with the lessons in a sitting position as a visual guide to help you in that process. I'll be spotlighting her periodically throughout the course of the lesson. And I will also periodically spotlight our team of video volunteers who are doing the lesson as instructed along with you. So you can use them as a visual guide if you need. And if you are joining us from Zoom, please have your whole self in view if you have your camera turned on, or just press the stop video option in the Zoom menu. Okay, that's it from me. I'm going to hand you over to David.
Thank you, Jennifer, and welcome to everyone. I'm very happy to be with you today. This is our first class in a 6-class series on freeing your chest. And I'm very, very excited about this series. And I've already curated most of the lessons. And I think that you will feel a tremendous benefit from these classes. Each class will be dedicated to restoring the flexibility and the mobility of your rib cage and using the enhanced movement of your chest to improve your breathing, your posture, your balance, the organization of your neck, your shoulders, and your back. This may seem like a tall order or a complicated project or a big promise, but it's not. Because, in fact, our nervous system, through our nervous system and our chest, through our nervous system and our musculature, our chest is directly connected to our entire self. Our chest is central to ourselves, and both figuratively and literally, and that means that whatever happens with our chest is influencing all of our movements, and maybe sometimes more importantly, often the way that we organize our chest is influencing our experience of ourself, our experience of being, being. And of course, if you think of it, it's logical. Tension or rigidity in my chest is necessarily going to affect the movements of my neck, my arms, my walking, and obviously my breathing, my voice. So all of my movements are going to be restricted, constrained, because of how I hold or organize my chest. So even in today's lesson, I think already you'll find that you will learn something very helpful. And because your chest is so central, you'll find that you feel today even improvements elsewhere. We're going to do today's lesson lying on the floor. So use a pad or a blanket or a mat to make yourself comfortable. You can do, if you are not comfortable lying on the floor, you can lie on your bed. You can, if you are uncomfortable with your head lying on the floor, you can put a little something behind your head, but please have it be as little as possible, because the more that you put behind your head, the more, in fact, and this is very important, the more it will restrict the movement of your chest. All right. So just a few words for those who may be here today who have not done Feldenkrais lessons before. Feldenkrais lessons work in a very, very different way than conventional exercise. We call them lessons because our brain is learning something useful when we do the lessons. We use a kind of a combination of gentle movements, but with attention to our own experience, attention to our sensations. And this actually works to stimulate the neuroplastic capacity of our brain. So there's just tremendous evidence showing that without attention, change in learning doesn't happen. In other words, the brain is not brought onto it feels that what is being done is insignificant. But once we start paying attention, our brain is lighting up. So this process, you're going to find, helps you to build new pathways, new neurological pathways, which will give you new options for the way that you move. You can create the conditions for your success by doing what is easy and comfortable for you, not straining, not doing too much, avoiding the slightest bit of discomfort. I know it sounds paradoxical, and that's why we don't use the word exercise, because for most people, the word exercise means pain, discomfort, or strain. So we want to avoid those things. We make each movement small. We do each movement slowly. We pause or rest between each movement. So I'll remind you of these ideas, these more process-oriented ideas as we go along. So your job is to attend to yourself, to take care of yourself, and to notice if you have the slightest pain or discomfort. I urge you to do less. Just if you'll find that if you make the movement smaller or slower, then you can avoid the pain and the discomfort. All right. And I just want to reiterate what Juniper said, which is that our staff are here to help you if you have the slightest question about what we're doing. Now, to begin with, I'd like to show you an image of a graphic image of a chest, of the ribs, or the rib cage, as it's commonly called. And I just want to give you the lay of the land. I understand that many of you are probably very intimate with the details of the organization of the chest, but for those who are not, I think this will be very helpful because it will give you an image that you can apply to yourself. So firstly, you can see that there's numbers from 1 to 12 on the left side of the chest, or your right side. The chest is facing us, the front of the chest is facing us, so it's the left side proper of the chest. And we have, as you probably know, we have 12 ribs on each side, so it's a total of 24 ribs, in fact. And 2 of those ribs are floating behind. They don't come all the way around in front and attached to a cartilage or attached to the sternum in front. They come around about halfway, a little less than halfway. And so that really is 10 ribs proper. And I know some would argue with me and say that there's less because you can see that number 10, 9, 8, and even 7 only connect through cartilage. They share cartilage. You can see that it's architecturally quite beautiful and elegant. The primary, and then the sternum, which is the bone in front, or it's commonly called your breastbone, and the sternum is where that cartilage connects. Now, it also connects behind. The ribs connect behind, and we'll show you that here. You can see that each of the 12 ribs, all 12 ribs, connect to a vertebra. I should say all 24 ribs, to say it correctly. All 24 ribs connect to a vertebra. These vertebrae are called your thoracic spine. And they are the vertebra that they have a little less movement than, say, the vertebra of our neck, or even our back, our lower back, our lumbar spine, and our cervical spine. And they are structurally a little different. Now, if you turn it around, please, Roz. The other image. Yeah, great. The primary thing that I would like you to notice that's relevant to today's lesson is the way in which the ribs are not in a true straight line to the right or to the left, but they actually ascend from the front or descend from the back, depending on the perspective you want. And if you just follow the cursor that Roz is moving, you can see how, let's say this is the 3rd rib, and you can see how it angles upwards. And each of your ribs and my ribs do that. Okay? Even if you've broken ribs, that, as I have, they're still angled upwards. It would just be the place where the rib broke may be thicker or misshapen a little bit, but still there's that upward angle from the front to the back, or that downward angle from the back to the front. All right. So and from the front, you can really only touch 10 of the ribs, and I'm going to qualify that and say really only 9 of the ribs, because the first rib, for most people, not everyone, but for most people, the first rib is behind our clavicles. Our clavicles, or our collarbones, as they are commonly called. the first rib is behind that, but the second rib is very easy to feel. And that's what we're going to do today, is we're going to try to discern where there is a rib, which by definition is bone, and where there is soft tissue. There is soft tissue between our ribs, and you'll find that it's very easy to differentiate our ribs from the soft tissue. All right, I think that's plenty. All right, so let's there's only one more thing about the lesson. It's a lesson that I've created for today's, especially for today's class. We are going to manipulate our own chest. Okay, I'm going to ask you to put your hands on one side of your chest. I'm going to ask you to feel where you discern soft tissue, where you can discern the rib, and then I'm going to ask you to very gently do something, and I'll direct you, and hopefully I'll direct you very clearly in how I would like you to move the rib. It's a very small movement. There's not a great deal of movement for any rib in particular, and the upper ribs move a little less than our lower ribs. But I think you will, as I said, I think the difference between soft tissue and bone will be quite easy for you to feel. Okay, so the approach will be your pads of your fingers, of your middle three fingers, will be on the ribs on one side, only on one side, the same rib on that side. Okay, so and our practitioner volunteers will be doing the movement as well. So if you have any confusion, then just feel free to look at your screen. All right, so please lie on your back. And if you're comfortable with your legs long, please lengthen your legs. Otherwise, you can have your knees bent. And place your hands, the palms of your hands, on your lower abdomen. Your elbows are on the floor. And just observe if you can feel that there's a small movement of your lower abdomen as you inhale and exhale, not asking you to breathe in any kind of special way, but just to sense what is. We're not trying to change anything. We're not trying to fix anything. In fact, you'll find that in the giving up of trying to improve ourselves, you will begin to improve. And just observe your right foot, how your right foot is making contact with the floor. And then move your attention slowly up your right leg, just feeling, sensing the contact of the back of your leg with the floor. maybe you can sense the difference between the soft tissue of your leg and the heaviness or the density of bone. You can feel that internally. And then behind your knee, there's a little space for most people. And then your upper leg, your thigh. And the right side of your pelvis. The pelvis in its three-dimensionality, meaning the back of your pelvis, the front, and now let's do the same thing, sensing, appreciating the contact with the floor of our left foot. And your lower leg. And this is also a context in which you can feel where can you let go, any holding, any muscular effort. You are supported by the floor. There is no need for work. And behind your left knee, and that distinction between the weight or the density of bone and the soft tissue, and your upper leg on the left. And the left side of your pelvis, the back of your pelvis. And you might feel now, if you sense both sides of your pelvis from behind, that one side of your pelvis is pressing a little more into the floor than the other. That's all. It's not a reason to change anything. And I'm not implying that there's a correct way for you to lie at this moment. The way you're lying is perfect. Perfect for you in this moment. And just observe if that movement of your lower abdomen has changed at all in the last few minutes. And now your lower back. Just observing if one side of your lower back is closer to the floor or further away from the floor than the other. None of us are perfectly symmetrical. So I'm not attempting to give you something new to concern yourself with or worry about. We are all asymmetrical to one extent or another. And now slowly move your attention from the back of your pelvis up your spine and just observing where your spine is making contact with the floor and where it's not. That's all. That's the simple distinction we're attempting to make. Nothing more complicated. And believe it or not, however you are sensing and feeling yourself right now is just fine. You'll see that there'll be a very big difference in an hour. And you can feel that behind your breastbone, your sternum, the contact of your spine with the floor is very clear. But then as you move further up your spine, you can feel that there's a little ascent away from the floor. And there's actually a bit of an arch behind your neck. Again, just perfectly normal. And your left shoulder blade and your right shoulder blade. Does one shoulder blade feel wider than the other? It's usually true for most of us. Is one shoulder blade more in contact with the floor than the other? Does one shoulder blade maybe feel a little higher, a little closer to your ear than the other? And you can feel the back of your head is touching the floor. And then your right arm. But I am asking you to pay attention to yourself, but don't exert even your attention in such a way that you stop your breathing. I once worked with a child who was having a lot of difficulty with reading. And right there, it was obvious that as soon as he began to try to pay attention to the text, he stopped his breathing, he tightened his jaw. So even our attention can have a profound influence on our breathing. Now you see if you can sense and feel yourself without stopping your breathing, without interrupting your breathing. It's a skill. Some of us can do it, and some of us, we need to just for a minute or two pay attention and observe what we do. All right. Now, please lengthen your left arm toward the ceiling. Leave your legs long, if you will. And if that can be comfortable. And lengthen your left arm a little bit toward the ceiling by lifting your left shoulder blade, just a small amount, and then drop your left shoulder blade back to the floor. So you very slowly, as you exhale, you lift your left shoulder blade away from the floor. In other words, your arm is relaxed. Your arm doesn't need to do any work at all. That's it. And obviously, it's a small movement. And so you have the time to pay attention to yourself and to feel, just as I suggested, that you could pay attention to your breathing as you sensed yourself. Here, you can do the same thing. You can let your attention move about yourself and feel, where can you relax as you lift your left shoulder blade away from the floor. Now, you feel internally, applying your attention to your kinesthetic or your physical experience internally, you feel when you lengthen your left arm that little bit from your left shoulder, even if it's just an inch or so, do you feel that in your chest? Can you feel that that your breastbone moves? That your ribs move? Some of your ribs undoubtedly are moving. That's right. And now bring your left arm down. Just rest for a moment, but observe. Even though maybe you did what, 4 or 5 movements, did something change in the contact of your left shoulder blade with the floor? And now take both your right hand and your left hand to the left side of your chest so that your both hands are gently, softly. You see where you can find a rib up towards your shoulder, where you feel, oh, that's bone and that's not soft tissue. And then very slowly, and see if you can relax your right shoulder, your right elbow, and a couple inches away from your sternum. That's right, not too close to your breastbone. And now slightly, just softly, move that rib a little bit to the left and see if you can feel that the yielding of the movement of that rib is a little bit upwards, that you can visualize what you saw in the image that we showed you a few minutes ago. You can visualize, oh, that rib doesn't go straight to the left. No, if I go straight to the left, that feels like there's a restriction. But if I go to the left and up a little, your hands stay on that one rib. Your fingers are very soft. Your hands are soft. That's it. And now move down to another rib. The next rib, maybe. I'm happy for you to be imprecise right now, because you'll see that your precision will grow as we interact with ourselves in this way. So now, what I'd like you to do is to apply that tiny bit of pressure, and then as soon as you feel that your rib doesn't move more, you stay there and breathe. So you keep the rib a little bit pressed toward the floor, and then you let go and you move down to another rib. So this is our practice right now. You move down to another rib, which is now probably your 4th rib, but I'm not interested for you to think about what number rib. It's just the 3rd time that I've said move to the next rib. And just slowly, you apply the tiniest bit of pressure softly to that rib so that your hands are, again, they can be a couple inches away from your sternum, or they can be even further away. That's right. You do what is comfortable. There shouldn't be any feeling of discomfort or tenderness even. That's right. And then you stay there and you inhale. And I'd just like you to observe if when you inhale, while keeping the rib a little bit to the left, is your inhaling different than it was a few minutes ago? That's right. And now move down to another rib. Very good. Again, your attention is really on feeling where you can reduce your effort in your hands, in your legs, your chest. All right. Now, rest your right arm on the floor and take your left arm toward the ceiling again. And just easily, simply lift your left shoulder blade away from the floor and feel if something, not so much does something feel different, but is your awareness different? Is your sense of the, what should we call it, the reciprocity between that lifting of your left shoulder blade and your chest? All right. Please rest for a minute. If you had your knees bent, please straighten them. And just observe if already there's something that is pulled foreground to your attention about the left side of your chest compared to the right side of your chest. And raise your right arm toward the ceiling. That's it. And just, again, slowly lift your right shoulder blade away from the floor. As you exhale, and again, we're not interested so much in the movement itself, but in you feeling where you can do less. Maybe you do something with your jaw. In other words, how close to zero effort can you be and still lift your right shoulder blade away from the floor? In other words, your stomach is relaxed, your legs, your back. Good. And now bring your right arm down and approach what you think might be the second rib on the right side of your chest. Again, with both hands, the pads of your middle fingers, they're more or less in the, that's right, symmetrical. That's it, exactly. And you just move a couple of inches away from your breastbone and just slowly take that rib to the right. Just a little bit to the right and up, I should have said. And then stay there and inhale and exhale. That's right. And then move down one rib. And again, your hands are soft, your fingers are soft. That's right. As if there's no urgency to do anything. You're not trying to accomplish something. You're trying to just add a half a gram of pressure to that one rib where you feel bone as opposed to soft tissue. And then you feel, oh, it goes a little bit, not just to the left, but a little bit up. That's right. And then you stay there for a moment as you do just one cycle of your breathing. You just inhale and exhale. So there's, again, your hands are soft, light, and you move down to your next rib. And in that way, go slowly. Maybe you can relax your left arm a little more. That's it. And now you're somewhere probably in the middle of your chest. Again, you don't want to be too close to your sternum, because there's more likely to be tenderness and the movement will be much smaller. So you come more away from your sternum and you find more, at least 2 inches away, maybe 3, wherever it is that you can personally easily feel that particular rib. That's right. And you just observe. There's no effort necessary anywhere else. And it's a very small ask that we're doing, isn't it? It's very soft, and it's just we're thinking very discreetly of one rib and how it moves to the right and up. All right. Now, please stop. I know maybe you feel as if you didn't touch each rib on the right side, and that's fine. Raise your right arm toward the ceiling. And again, just appreciate if something has changed in your kinesthetic sensory sense of lifting your right shoulder blade away from the floor. Very nice. Rest for a moment. Just observe if something's changed now in the contact of your right shoulder blade with the floor. You think it's very few movements that you've done, very few. Now, this time, bend your left knee and stand your left foot. And as you exhale, slowly push your left foot against the floor and use that pushing of your left foot to help you to roll your pelvis to the right a little. Just what's easy. That's it, exactly. And see if you can feel that it's almost as if your left upper leg, your left knee gets longer. In other words, longer meaning goes away from your head. Now, would it be fair to say that when you push your left foot against the floor to help you to roll your pelvis to the right a little bit, in other words, the left side of your pelvis comes away from the floor, would it be fair to say that you can feel that movement in your chest? And that your chest rolls a little, right? Turns a little. Beautiful. Now, please put both your left hand and your right hand on the left side of your chest, just where you think your second rib might be, or your third rib. And now, slowly, as you roll your pelvis to the right, you inhibit the movement of your chest to the right by taking that rib on your left side, the second or third rib. It's inconsequential which rib you are applying that little bit of pressure, but you inhibit that one rib from following your pelvis. from following your pelvis rolling to the right. That's it. So you push your left foot, you roll your pelvis to the right, the left side of your pelvis, the back of your pelvis comes away from the floor, just doesn't matter how much, but you inhibit the movement of that rib by doing exactly what we were doing a moment ago, right? You move that rib a little to the left and up. That's it. And go down to another rib. It's okay to do each rib once or twice. Then come down and do another one. Or if there were ribs you didn't touch before, you can find those. But you can visualize, and even more importantly, you can feel that what's happening is that your lower spine, your lumbar spine, is turning in one direction, and that by inhibiting the movement of that rib, you're not allowing that part of your thoracic spine, especially that one vertebra that the rib is connected to turn. This is what we call differentiating. This is very sharp differentiation between the movement of your pelvis and the movement of your thoracic spine. And each time you move down to another rib, that vertebra that's there, that rib is attached to, is inhibited from participating in that turning. Very good. Now, lengthen your left arm toward the ceiling and see. Join the lifting of your left shoulder blade away from the floor with the pushing of your left foot and the rolling of your pelvis, and feel. Is something a little easier? A little lighter? That's it. And let's rest for a moment. But even in our resting, there are interesting things to be felt. Which leg feels longer? The leg that was bent or the leg that's been straight? And which side of your chest from behind feels closer to the floor? And bend right knee, stand your right foot, and again, without any sense of a goal or I have to make a big movement, just push your right foot into the floor to help you roll your pelvis a little bit to the left. And just use your valuable and extraordinary attention to just feel where you can do less. And you exhale, and you feel where you can soften your stomach, your throat, your jaw. Maybe you open your mouth a little bit. That's right. And now bring your hands to the right side of your chest. So both hands in the way that we've been doing, with the pads of your fingers, not your fingernails, just the pads of your fingers. And now go ahead and inhibit the movement of one vertebra as your pelvis and your lumbar spine are turning, but you feel you're actually limiting the ability of your pelvis to turn, because the turning of your pelvis is completely dependent on the participation of your whole self. That's it. And you do each rib once or twice, and you tilt that vertebra to the right and a little up, and then you stay there and inhale. That's it. So the restriction or the inhibition that you're creating by moving the rib to the right as you roll your pelvis to the left it's the way that you respond to that inhibition or restriction goes to the heart of how we move ourselves. So see if you can meet that restriction by doing less, rather than trying to find a way to roll your pelvis or turn in spite of the inhibition. See if you can embrace the inhibition and just do less. That's it. And maybe you go down to some of your lower ribs a few times, and you'll see something interesting, that because those lower ribs are so close to the your lumbar spine, meaning the vertebra of your lower back, well, then you find they actually have a very pronounced effect on the movement of your pelvis. You feel that? All right. And now just bring your right arm toward the ceiling, and a few times just observe the suppleness or the flexibility, the pliability of your chest as you lengthen your right arm toward the ceiling and push with your right foot. That's it. Very nice. All right. Let's rest for a moment and just appreciate the width of the back of your chest, the contact with the floor of your lower back. Would you say possibly that your pelvis appears to be lying on the floor a little more symmetrically? Maybe. Please bend your left knee and bring your hands to the left side of your chest. That's it. And now as you roll your pelvis to the right and you inhibit the movement of a vertebra, of a rib, and now I think you can feel free to go wherever you like on your chest, and turn your head and eyes to the right. Just a few times, turn your head and eyes to the right as you inhibit the move. So now something interesting is happening, just slowly. Means that your lower vertebra of your lower back are turning in one direction, and then you're turning that area of your thoracic spine in the opposite direction, and then your head is turning in the opposite direction of your thoracic spine also. Now try a few times turning your head and eyes to your left. Very good. So now the turning of your head and eyes is following that gentle, soft pressure. That's right. Good. And take your left arm to the ceiling and rest your right arm on the floor. And just see if something is a little easier about lengthening your left arm, still being initiated from the lifting of your shoulder blade away from the floor. And feel how your head and eyes are turning to the right. What would happen if you turned your head and eyes to the left? And now to the right again. You see, each little variation, you can't help but pay attention to yourself when you do something that's novel, interesting, non-habitual. And then you reap the rewards. You feel how easily your chest is turning, bending. That's right. All right, let's rest for a minute. And again, just appreciate the feeling of the left side of yourself compared to the right side of yourself. When we combine attention and gentle movement in this way, the changes happen almost immediately. It's quite extraordinary. Of course, the movements need to be connected, but if they are connected, each of our brains take advantage of the new information. Why? Because your brain is your greatest ally. Your brain wants to do things that in an easier way. And bend your right knee, stand your right foot. That's right. And now bring your hands to the right side of your chest. Both hands, that's right, wherever you're inclined. And now roll your pelvis to the left and take your ribs to the right. That's it. Slowly. And now turn your head and eyes to the left as you do that. That's it. In other words, your cervical spine, the vertebra of your neck, moving in the opposite direction of the rib that you're taking to the right. And this is actually very unique, but you'll see that there's many muscles that connect to that one vertebra and that one rib that you're touching and moving. That's it. And now a few times turn your head and eyes to the right. Now you're turning your head with the ribs, but in the opposite direction of your pelvis and your lumbar spine. And just feel, again, where you can soften yourself, your chest, your hands, your neck, your jaw. Beautiful. And bring your left arm to the floor, bring your right arm to the ceiling. And go ahead and just lift your right shoulder blade away from the floor as you push your right foot and lengthen your right knee. That's it. And see, well, as you turn, are you coming more onto your left side than the last time we did this? And now a few times turn your head and eyes to the right. That's it. It actually has a very interesting feeling, isn't it? And it's not a matter of turning your head and eyes to the right before you roll your pelvis or after. That's right. And then you'll see, if you allow your head and eyes to turn to the left again, something has changed. And I say that because the change is, it's reliable. We are taking advantage of the incredible intelligence of our nervous system, an intelligence that most of us aren't aware of. All right, let's rest for a minute. Please put your hands on your lower abdomen and just observe if something feels, I don't know, easier, softer. Please bend both knees and separate your feet about shoulder width apart, just easily, simply. And again, put your hands on your right hand on the lower part of the right side of your chest, your left hand on the lower part of the left side of your chest, just comfortably, easily. And now tilt your knees, both knees to the left, and observe how your chest follows that tilting of your legs, and maybe to the right. That's it. And now put your hands, your left hand on a rib on the left side of your chest, just the pads of those 3 fingers. Your fingers are pointed, fingertips are pointed upwards towards your shoulders. And so your left hand on the left side of your chest, your right hand on the right side of your chest. And so now you can do something very interesting, which is you can move a pair of ribs. So now as you tilt your legs, let's just go to the left. As you tilt your legs to the left, you move a pair of ribs to the right. So you inhibit, you say there's the 3rd rib or the 4th rib. Well, it's on both your right side and your left side, isn't it? And so you can be 2 inches, 3 inches, however many inches you want away from your sternum. And then you take that pair of ribs to the right as you tilt your knees to the left. That's it. And now take those ribs to the left as you tilt your knees to the right. That's it. And when your knees tilt to the right, you stay there for a moment and breathe. And then you tilt your knees to the left. Maybe you move down to another rib. That's it. But you move that pair of ribs. Of course, behind they attach to the same vertebral body behind. That's right. But for all of us, there's one side of our chest that's turned a little more forward or a little more back than the other side. That's it. And if you feel any restriction at all, you do less. That's it. You adapt what you're doing to yourself. You soften your hands. Maybe you can relax your face a little. You tilt both knees to the right. And you move that pair of ribs wherever you are to the left. And then you tilt your knees to the left. And you move that pair of ribs wherever you are to the right. That's it. Very nice. And now just tilt your legs freely to the right and to the left as we did a moment ago and feel. Does something feel clear? It's paradoxical, isn't it? We inhibit the movement of the chest, and the chest becomes softer, easier. That's right. And now bring both arms to the ceiling. And maybe a few times you lift your right shoulder blade away from the floor and let your left knee tilt toward the floor. And then you lift your left shoulder blade away from the floor and you turn to the right. And you let your right knee tilt toward the floor. That's it. And now feel what happens if you turn your head in the opposite direction of your chest. So when you roll your pelvis to the left, you turn your head to the right. And when you roll your pelvis to the right, you turn your head and eyes to the left. And what's happening in your thoracic spine? This part of your spine that's behind your chest. That's it. And now Go ahead and turn your head and eyes with the movement. Oh. Now, if you let the opposite elbow go all the way to the floor, you'll see that some of you can end up lying on your side, meaning you lengthen your right arm and you feel like, oh, I'm lying on my left side. And you lengthen your left arm and you let your right elbow drop and you feel, oh, I'm lying on my right side. Maybe you could let both knees fall. That's okay too. Maybe you can even do it a little faster. That's right. And can you do it a little faster and turn your head in the opposite direction that your chest is going? That's it. Yeah, just do what feels sweet to you. Easy, comfortable. All right, let's rest and stretch out your legs. Is there something interesting about your contact with the floor? Your spine, your shoulder blades, your lower back. And now slowly bend one knee and then bend the other. And then slowly roll to one side and come up to sitting. And then slowly, take your time, come up to standing. But you take your time. There's no rush. There's no hurry. There's nowhere we're going except right here. And then when you do come to standing, notice, does something, would you say, feel wider about your chest or narrower? Or do you somehow feel taller or shorter? Is the top of your head closer to the ceiling? Is the back of your head a little more back or forward? And just observe if you can relax your lower abdomen and just feel how your chest expands as you inhale. You just feel if something feels, I don't know, easier. And you'll find that something's easier about the way that your head is sitting on top of your spine. And now just take a minute to walk around your room, and that's right, and feel your breastbone. See if you can relax your shoulders, your stomach, and again feel the width of your chest in front. All right. Thank you very much. And I hope to see you at this series. Every lesson will be very different and very unique. And I hope this lesson gives you a hint of where we're going. All right.